That's Jimmy Stein. I'm Clint Lamb, and this is the Cover Crimson YouTube channel. Jimmy, we've talked about Vanderbilt. It was a good victory for Alabama. Talked about the offense, the defense, the ups, the downs, and everything in between as far as Alabama's 30-14 win. Now it's time to redirect our attention, look forward to Alabama's game this weekend against Missouri. Obviously, we're going to start with one side of the football, and then for another episode on Thursday, we'll be doing the other side. But I want to start by talking about the game in general because, I didn't like what I heard. I think it was Monday's press conference with, I think it was Kalen DeBoer, but someone asked something about, handling trap games and things like that. And just, I don't like that approach with this. That makes no sense. They're the number 14 team in the country. You're going on the road to play them. They're undefeated. Statistically speaking, they're one of the best teams in the country. Now, granted, I do understand that strength of schedule plays into that. We don't know just how good or not good Missouri is, but the assumption should never be, hey, they've looked fantastic, but I'm just going to go ahead and assume that they're not very good. When you have to play them, if we want to have these discussions when it comes to Indiana and stuff, you don't have to line up on the field and necessarily play Indiana that weekend. So it's a little bit different in my opinion, but what I wanted to ask was, what are your thoughts on this game and this perception that it could be anything even remotely similar to a trap game?
I'm with you 100%. This is just a big game. I mean, you could have made the argument this could have been Alabama's second consecutive college game day game. In fact, SEC Nation is going to be there, meaning it's sort of so it was selected by the ESPN people for that kind of treatment with SEC Nation showing up. This is a big game. It's a big game, just like the last two. This is just the hand you're dealt in the SEC where you play somebody good every week. But Missouri's not a trap game. If you're not ready to play one of the top 15 teams in the country, you're going to lose because they legitimately may be that good. We don't know that yet because there just hasn't been enough sample size. But as to, people just blowing off Missouri's results, if they are the best team in the country, let's say they prove to be the best team in the country, you know what their record would be right now? 5-0. We don't know that they're not the best team in the country. I doubt it. I think they're going to be one of the better teams in the country. Now, I will say this, though. Don't make too much of what Missouri's done in the first five. And I say that in this sense. They have played two fairly good football teams. South Carolina and Kansas are fairly good. They're not terrible by any stretch of the imagination. ESPN Strength of Record says South Carolina is the 44th best team in the country. Kansas is 49th. That's actually pretty good. There's 130 teams. That's actually pretty good. Missouri beat both of them. But before we get carried away with how great Missouri might be, they didn't exactly line up and beat the crap out of South Carolina and Kansas. In fact, they were down 20-18 to South Carolina going into the fourth quarter. They were also down to Kansas by 2 scores at one point in the game. So it's not like they dominated those teams. They did win. I give them credit for those wins. Those are pretty good teams they beat. But I'm not making Missouri out to be this sleeper, national semifinalist type team. I don't buy that. But I know this. I don't care who they beat. Their stats say they're good. I believe this is a good football team because I know they have dudes. We're going to talk about their dudes in the show. They have some dudes. Hardy's a dude. Jamal Roberts is a dude. The tackle that's questionable, he's a dude. Kevin Coleman's good. Bo Prabula's good. I'm just talking about the offense. They got probably an even better defense than their offense. So this is a team full of dudes. That's a heck of a challenge. Trap game? That's nonsense to me. This is a top 15 football team. You better be prepared to play a top 15 football team this weekend.
Yeah, and I will say 90% of the fan base has given Missouri a lot of respect this week. Because I understand that typically Missouri hadn't been viewed as one of the premier programs in the SEC, but it's kind of like Vanderbilt, but a more extreme example compared to Vanderbilt because I think Missouri is better than Vandy in a lot of ways. I think they're a little bit better in the trenches. Their pass rush, I think, is better. I think offensively, the weapons they have at wide receiver, they got more than what Vanderbilt had. And I understand that Eli Stowers is, an NFL type of player, but outside of him, good skill position players, not great skill position players. The running back, Cedric Alexander, one of the more underrated players in the SEC, in my opinion. Is he Ahmad Hardy? No. Is he Jamal Roberts? Personally, no.
No.
So it's like, Bo Prabula, which I always struggle with that name, but he is a really good player, has played good winning football, and he plays off of what they do extremely well, which is their run game. So that is something that, from a start to finish overall product, I think Missouri is a very, very good football team. And I think the fact that you have to go to Missouri is another talking point. Now, here's something else that I want to talk about because, I have said that an 11 a.m. kickoff, it is an obstacle that you have to overcome if you're Alabama. Now, as a lot of people have pointed out, the 11 a.m. kickoff actually favors the road team because the crowd might not be as into it. So in some ways that actually helps Alabama. That's a fair point. Another thing that I really was not thinking about that I think is an even better point, because it directly affects what I was referring to when I said the 11 a.m. kickoff could be a problem, was getting up and getting your body ready to go. And the coaching staff, the fact that they practice so early in the mornings, that actually plays to Alabama's advantage because they're used to having to get up, get food in their body, get going, and be ready to play football a lot earlier in the day. That's something that I had not thought about. So based off of my thoughts on 11 a.m. kickoff being a potential problem, in some ways, it might actually turn into an advantage that goes beyond the crowd.
I love that take big time. I think also when you're on the road, I mean, think about, we've all gone on trips. Everyone that didn't play college football is listening to the show. We've all gone on trips. There's probably nothing worse to do than go to the hotel and just hang out all day. Now, I know that when they play at night, the coaches keep them busy and there's meetings and walkthroughs in the lobby and the team breakfast and the team lunch and all that stuff. I think it's just better to get up and go do it, and not sit around all day. So I like the visiting team with that 11 a.m. Meanwhile, the home team, they're the one that's a little out of sorts. They're spending the night in a hotel instead of their normal apartment or on campus dorm type situation. They're in a hotel. They're at home, yet their routine is drastically different. All the road trips are somewhat similar, except kickoff times vary. I love your point about Alabama practicing in the morning and how they're ready. Alabama is usually getting off the practice field by 11. I mean, that's when practices are ending. So they're used to getting up and getting started. In fact, it's practically a sleep-in day for some of them, depending on, how that all works. But they practice very early in the morning. Obviously, it's a home advantage for Missouri. SEC teams, I believe this number, I could be off one or two because it's off memory, but I think SEC teams so far this season, 48-7 at home. Now, a lot of those are big favorite against non-conference type things. True, like Alabama beating Monroe and Alabama beating Wisconsin. That's true. But 48-7, that's too massive not to pay attention to. It's hard to beat anyone in the SEC on the road, regardless of kickoff time. And Missouri, I think, is in the top half of the league in terms of who's good, who's in the middle, and who's in the bottom. I go 16 teams. They're top half for me. You got to go on the road. But I'm with Clint. I don't think the 11 a.m. thing is a particular problem for Alabama. It's probably to Alabama's benefit.
I mean, I'll go ahead and say, when I was in high school, obviously you play Friday nights. Practices would be right after school. So it would kind of go, you were kind of used to it being an afternoon night type of thing. When I got to college, I played Division III at Birmingham Southern before it shut down, way before it shut down. And it was the biggest adjustment, having to go from constantly every single one of your games being at 7 o'clock at night to every single one of your games being at noon. You had to be up super early. You had to be at breakfast, get some food in you. But the problem in hindsight that I never thought about is we also practiced in the afternoons. Why? Considering all of our games, every one of them was at noon. We didn't practice in the morning. Never made sense to me, because I will say by the time we were stepping on the field for a noon kickoff, it felt to me like I was just waking up. Like, it just
Yeah.
from an energy standpoint, it was the craziest change out of everything that I had experienced going from high school to college. And now, granted, guys are used to having to play at different times, but having that experience where you play early, like a lot of Nick Saban teams, they didn't do so well with the 11 a.m. kickoffs. A lot of teams don't. So it wasn't like it was Nick Saban specific,
He
but a lot
practiced
of,
in the afternoon.
yeah, but he practiced in the afternoon. And so I think that is such an interesting point that I had not thought about, and we absolutely needed to bring it up and discuss it. Go ahead.
Imagine this. You're saying your games are at noon. Imagine this. Imagine getting in a physical fight with someone at 11 in the morning.
Great point.
That just doesn't sound right, does it?
Every time I've thrown hands has been in the evenings.
There you go. There you go. I mean, that's the whole point about it. Is a little strange to play football at that time of day because there's not much difference between that and a physical altercation. And not many people are throwing hands at 11 a.m. So they don't do that. Point. They don't do that UFC. Heck, they don't even do boxing matches. Not 11, maybe in the Olympics or something.
I mean, that is just something where it's like, okay, for this type of game, a lot of people were concerned about, the heat and the fact that Alabama wasn't ready potentially for Florida State and dealing with those conditions because they were practicing in the mornings. Well, this is where practicing in the mornings can play to your advantage. So hopefully it does. Doesn't automatically mean that it will, and it's something that Missouri can overcome. But I do want to point out that is a big talking point, and I don't remember who said it yesterday. Well, I guess it was the coaching staff was being asked questions about it, and players were being asked questions and their routines in the morning and everything else. And it's like, man, that is such a good point that I didn't think about. So I definitely wanted to acknowledge that. Now let's talk about Alabama's offense against Missouri's defense, because, this is kind of the one where the crowd's really going to be involved. The opposing offense being on the field, the home defense being on the field. Missouri right now, from a defensive standpoint, Zion Young and Damon Wilson, those two guys are getting after people. And really, it's not just them, it's Darius Smith as well, which is a rotational piece. Okay. All three of those guys have 14-plus pressures. As far as the pass rush win rate, Zion Young and Damon Wilson, both of those two guys have two of the highest in the entire country. And so that is something from Alabama's offensive standpoint. I know that they're pretty comfortable playing in those third mediums and those third and longs. But with Caden Proctor kind of having some of the issues that he's had, you've got Wilkin Formby, who's obviously had some issues in pass protection at times, and you've got a true freshman of Michael Carroll, who obviously comes in and plays quite a bit of tackle. You need to do whatever you can to avoid those third and obvious pass rush situations to give Missouri, because if you do, I'm not saying Alabama won't win some, but I'll go ahead and tell you I think Missouri's probably going to win some as well.
This is the best pass rush Alabama's seen since Florida State, and it was a problem against Florida State. And Missouri is arguably better than even Florida State at the defensive end position and the pass rush positions. This is a real challenge. I know we've enjoyed watching Proctor play wide receiver and running back, but dude really needs to focus on playing left tackle this week. He's got his hands full at left tackle with Damon Wilson, who, had he stayed at Georgia, for those that don't know, he is a Georgia transfer. Had he stayed at Georgia, he'd probably be their best pass rusher. And as a matter of fact, pass rushing is an issue. And while I don't venture to the Georgia message boards too often, it's easy to guess. A lot of them have been lamenting this month over where the heck is Damon Wilson and why we let him go. He is an extremely impactful player with high level talent, and he will be a handful. And Zion Young on the other side is a problem. So this is where the game will be won. And let me tell you, I think Alabama's got some advantages pass game wise. I mean, I love Ty Simpson in this matchup. I love Alabama's wide receivers in this matchup in particular. I think Alabama's fantastic wide receiver core can really make some sunshine this weekend. But if Ty Simpson is under immense pressure in the backfield, it doesn't matter. You can't get the ball to those guys if Ty's on his back or having to scramble out of his first read consistently. So Alabama's pass protection is a major key in this game, and Missouri's not going to make it easy.
Yeah, and I mean, I think this is a week where, granted, you don't want Ty doing what he did at times last week, where he was trying to do a little bit too much. He was hanging on to the football too long and taking some unnecessary sacks. But what I will say is, based off of this pass rush, it's a good time to have a player who has a good feel in the pocket, can elude pressure in the pocket, and can extend to make some plays, because I do think at times Ty's going to have to do that in this football game, much like he has had to do that in every football game. And this is a pass rush that is much better, in my opinion, than anything Alabama has faced. Now, Florida State certainly, got to respect them as well. But I just think Zion Young's playing really good football. He's a great run defender, big body guy, 260 plus pounds, but he also gets after you. Damon Wilson is more of that jack linebacker, that smaller, I think about 6'4", 250-ish. They have their terms for their players. It's kind of a hybrid between the Nick Saban terminology and what at least Kane Womack used to have, as far as the rover at safety rather than a strong safety. But you've got the jack, you've got the star. Their defense is listed as a 4-2-5, but that jack player is much in the same way as the Wolf, where he's a stand-up player and he can get after you. Damon Wilson can. He's the transfer from Georgia. I think he was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, if I'm not mistaken. But this guy, he is probably, I love Zion Young as far as being more of the complete player, but as far as being the most disruptive, probably would give that to Young. But really, it goes just beyond those two guys. I think their defensive front's pretty good in general. I think their second level, a guy like Trotter, Josiah Trotter. Yeah, he's a really, really, really good run defender. I mean, one of the better run defenders that I've seen on tape. There's some, he's got some exploitations, things that you can exploit in coverage, in my opinion, and hopefully Alabama figures out creative ways to do that. And that's kind of where I trust Ryan Grubb to see that and understand how they can use that to their advantage. But, once again, we're going to be talking about this with Alabama's defense and kind of keeping Pribula off schedule or keep them behind the sticks as much as possible. But for Alabama, you have to stay on schedule as much as you possibly can, because the more that you can do that, the less you give this pass rush to get after Ty Simpson and give them opportunities to create game-changing plays.
Yeah, Wilson is a transfer. So is Josiah Trotter. He came from West Virginia. He's one, like Clint said, one of the better off-ball linebackers in this league. He is going to be a big part of stopping the Alabama run game, but maybe you get Josh Cuevas or something involved to take advantage of him in the pass game. You mentioned earlier about some similarities with the Saban defense. A good time to mention that Missouri defensive coordinator Corey Batoon is from the Kane Womack tree. Actually spent some time at South Alabama. So I think that, advantage Alabama, advantage Missouri. I think Missouri knows Alabama's defense well. Why? Corey Batoon. Alabama's going to know Missouri's defense well. Why? Kane Womack. I mean, they know each other well, and what they do probably cancels each other out to a degree in terms of the chess game. But they're not strangers to each other's defenses anyway. And both teams will have a lot of intelligence in regard to that. Khalil Jacobs is another front seven guy from Missouri I wanted to mention, just simply because Alabama fans might be a little familiar with him if you intensely follow recruiting like we do. Khalil Jacobs was at South Alabama and considered transferring to Alabama. I can't remember if he took a visit. I believe he did.
He did.
And during the recruiting process, and eventually chose Missouri, where I think he felt he would have an easier time of actually getting on the field, and he has. And he's playing well. He's disruptive, and just as an athletic presence that's played for both Womack in the distant past, and stuck with Corey Batoon there at Missouri. But Khalil Jacobs, good athlete, good player. Missouri doesn't lack for guys. This isn't like playing LSU. I don't think it's not like playing Georgia in terms of every single guy they put on the field is some sort of 5-star, 4-star. But where Drink has done really well, in my opinion, is these transfers, evaluating well in the portal. Damon Wilson's been very good. Josiah Trotter's been good. Khalil Jacobs is good. These guys all came from somewhere else. Drink doing an excellent job, him and his staff, of evaluating the guys in the portal.
Yeah, Jalen Catalon. I mean, the guy who played at Arkansas, he played at Texas. This guy he's a pre-COVID kid. I mean, or guy, man. I mean, at this point, he could
be Diego Pavia's uncle.
Yeah, that's it. That's a great way to put it. He is an older veteran player and, pretty good in coverage, certainly loves to hit people. That's kind of what he's been known for. Gets physical, about 5'10", about 200 pounds, I believe, maybe a little bit heavier than that, but he's not big. But he's stocky and he loves to hit people. And so he's roaming around in that secondary, playing a lot of football for them. Like you said, Khalil Jacobs is a guy who is a good player at South Alabama. Alabama being able to, I'm trying to remember, there was something that came up that allowed them to not go after, they stopped pursuing Khalil Jacobs. And I think at that point, I don't remember what exactly transpired, but there was like another player and I was trying to think. But anyways, point being, Jacobs ended up going to Missouri because there was some familiarity there. He is a spot starter, like depending on, he's not like a full-time guy for them. I mean, he's played, I think, close to 100 snaps. So he plays a lot, but it's not like he's a full-time starter for them, which kind of tells you where that, defensive front is, because he is a very good player and certainly contributing to that defense. And it's going to have to be something that, someone that Alabama keeps an eye on, just like a lot of these guys. But, what I'm encouraged about is the lack of penalties when Alabama went on the road and played Georgia. I thought that was encouraging. I thought their ability to handle the noise, the crowd, the moment. Ty Simpson was very effective. Like these all give me hope as far as Alabama going on the road, because if you didn't have that data point to look at and say, hey, they might be moving in the right direction. They did it one time. So you can't say, oh, we can forget about all the other road woes that they've had. They've got it taken care of. They're going to be just fine. But this is an encouraging development relative to the last time Alabama was going on the road. And it was like, pretty much every time they go, they very rarely play well. So outside of LSU. So now we got a couple of data points. Maybe I think they're starting to get more comfortable and confident. Starting quickly, I think, is going to be important. Really try to take that crowd out of it. I understand it's an 11 a.m. kick, but when you play Alabama and you think you've got a chance, that place is going to be rocking. That place is going to be packed. So I don't want to confuse anybody and say that crowd is not really going to be a factor. It 100% is, and they've just got to be able to manage that. And if they can do some of the things they did against Georgia, I do think that they're in pretty good position to have some success offensively.
Yeah, in some ways, I like the matchup, and I like it in this in particular. South Carolina threw for over 300 yards against Missouri. Even Kansas and Jalen Daniels had some success in the air. I think off the top of my head, around 230 yards passing for Kansas, who doesn't normally throw it all over the yard. I think Ty Simpson and that receiving core can have a big day. It's what I expect to see. I would be comfortable in betting Ty Simpson going over 300 yards in the game. I don't know if it'll be to one guy in particular. I don't know if there's a particular, hey, is it going to be the inside guys? Is it going to be the slot guys? Alabama's got such good depth of not just guys that play, but playmakers. I mean, who would be shocked if it's Latsier Brooks that has the massive game? Who would be surprised if Isaiah Horton caught 8 balls? Who would be surprised if for the first time this year, a Rico Scott or a Derek Meadows or a Cole Adams made a big play in this game? It wouldn't be shocking at all. It's just not going to always be Ryan and Germ, but it's usually going to be Ryan and Germ because they're the two best. And Missouri, in particular, just about anybody has trouble with those two. I think it'll be a big day for them. I think a real good question is Jam Miller coming off 130-yard day against Vandy. How does he do against a team statistically? Their run defense is very, very good. We went over their personnel, Trotter in the middle. This doesn't seem like a Jam Miller day, but if you're having a lot of success outside, you've sort of made life easier for Jam Miller, maybe particularly in the second half. So maybe Jam Miller has a sneaky good day here, just in the sense that you got to think Missouri and these teams that are now preparing to play Alabama now know where Alabama's real weapons are outside and Ty Simpson, and they're going to defend Alabama a little differently. Maybe the box won't be quite as stacked, allowing a Jam Miller to have a bigger day than we think. But in terms of like what has to happen on that side of the ball for Alabama is, to me, it's just kind of mandatory. Got to be a big day from Ty. Got to be a big day from those playmakers outside. Missouri may force Alabama to score in the 30s to win the game. And that to me means Ty Simpson and that impressive core of wide receivers.
Yeah, and here's what I'll say. I mean, I think based off of last week, I think Alabama's getting one step closer to being more of that 2020 Alabama offense, that 2019 LSU offense, that 2022 Tennessee offense, where it's like they're so multiple and so many different ways that they can attack you. When you add a true ground game that you can lean on, like Vanderbilt, a lot of too high safeties. Alabama's ability to make them pay for that was absolutely huge for teams that are trying to play the too high to take away as much from Ty Simpson as possible. Now, I will say up to this point, it almost hadn't really mattered for Ty. Doesn't mean that it won't in the future, but I mean, it hadn't really mattered what defenses have done because Ty still had a ton of success against Vanderbilt, despite the fact they were running split safety looks the entire game pretty much. So that is encouraging. I think the fact that you've already had this, you're already comfortable if one of the elements of your offense is taken away. Like if you're not having a lot of success running the football, Alabama can do things and they're comfortable doing things to kind of compensate for that as far as the screen game and making an extension of your run game through a passing game. But then also just Ty not really having that element at his disposal and it not shaking him. You know, if he's got to drop back and throw it 40 times, he's okay doing that. And this offense is comfortable doing that. And it's not just, hey, I got to drop back and feed one guy because I got one dude or one or two dudes. The reason that it's so effective is that the opposing defense is trying to cover 4 or 5 bona fide, top tier playmakers in college football all at the same time. And it's damn near impossible if I'm speaking candidly. So that is something where while I do agree that it is possible, now granted, based off of who Missouri has played, I could see Alabama still having some success running the football. But if they don't, I don't think it's cause for panic because they're kind of already been living in a situation where, a lot of points this season, they haven't had that complimentary run game.
That's exactly right, Alabama. It doesn't matter how you score. I realize life is made so much easier on offense if you have balance. That creates so many opportunities for the offense. But in the end, they don't ask you at the end of the game, how did you score? They only ask you if you scored. And if Alabama has virtually all of its production from the pass game, that's fine. If all the yards, all the points are coming from Ty's arm and those receivers, that's fine. But that's harder to do if you're not at least committed to running the ball some. Doesn't have to work, doesn't have to be productive, but you got to try. Because if you're not showing run, it's harder to win exclusively in the pass game. But does it matter that all the production and points come from the pass game? No, it's like, hey, if you're a basketball player and you're averaging 33 a game, does it matter that all of them are dunks or all of them are threes? No, what matters is you scored 33 points. So I think Missouri's probably going to be pretty tough against the run, and Alabama's got to be prepared to be real productive in the pass game. They don't have to be productive in the run game, but you better show it. You better show that off-speed pitch. If your plan is to get them out with the fastball, you better show them the off-speed stuff anyway.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's kind of where, Alabama is a threat to run the football, in my opinion, based off of what they did against Vanderbilt. The fact that Jam Miller, he looked explosive, the vision, just from a complete, what he contributes as far as the passing game, whether it be out of the backfield or whether it be a guy who can flex a little bit and get him on some jets, whether it be him in pass protection. He is such a difference maker for this Alabama offense in general. But having him out there as a runner where because I think with Kevin Riley, good player, very explosive, great complimentary piece. But, he kind of feels like a guy, it's almost Kenyon Drake-esque in the sense of he's probably never going to be the guy where he's like the main top of the depth chart workhorse type of running back. But he is always going to be a guy who's involved because of everything that he provides and the explosiveness that he brings to the table. And I think that when you talk about having that headliner back, someone who's a lot more effective in Jam Miller, that kind of takes the entire, not just the rushing element, but the running back position in general. It takes it to a whole different level that makes it a lot more effective. And from a defensive standpoint, like Georgia, Alabama had done nothing up to the Georgia game on the ground to warrant what Georgia did to make sure they took away Alabama's run game. But they knew Jam was back and they felt like, hey, they're going to be more effective than they have been. And yes, from a numbers standpoint, it kind of looked very the same. But Georgia was respecting the run, no doubt about it. And I think Missouri is going to have to do the same, which obviously is going to open up opportunities for Ty in the passing game.
No, absolutely. And obviously, Ty's got the dudes to take advantage of it out there. Ty playing extremely well. It's crazy what the national media is even saying about how well Ty Simpson's playing. Crazy that we're only talking about 5 starts in his career. And you hear things like number 1 pick in the draft, which I think is way premature for that. Even him coming out, I think is way too premature. Leading a lot of these Heisman odds things. Again, too early for that for me. But just the fact that you're only 5 games into his career and people are saying things like that just goes to show how he's catching everybody's attention. Also a good kid. I think that helps. I mean, everybody likes Ty Simpson. Great weapons to throw to, Brian and Germ, and this is the Alabama's best wide receiver core since the rideouts. And they got the quarterback that can take advantage of it. Last couple of years, maybe you didn't have as good of a passer, both inside and outside the numbers. And people are saying the wide receiver core is lacking. Maybe so, but when you got a quarterback they talk about as, hey, maybe the number 1 pick in the draft, all of a sudden that wide receiver core looks suddenly better and deeper and more weapons because the quarterback's getting them the ball where they needed to down the field and on time. Ty Simpson and that wide receiver core, Joel Klatt called it the best passing game in college football right now.
Yeah, and I completely agree with it. And what I love about it is you talk to Ryan Grubb, and he's kind of he's you can tell he's humbling Ty behind the scenes. He's making sure that like there's no complacency there. Ty wanted to be coached hard. He said that after the Florida State game. Ryan Grubb has obliged. He has come through and said that, because when I just was hearing him talk about Ty, he wasn't saying, hey, he talked about his ability to escape and all that stuff, but he keeps bringing it back to what he needs to do to get better. And, as far as, hey, Ty's getting all this hype and stuff, and he's like, quarterbacks deflect. You deflect the praise. You put that you give praise to others. You accept all criticism and all responsibility. And he said that Ty's doing a good job of that. But it's just, I didn't feel like he's certainly not overhyping his quarterback, despite the fact that I think he's playing really good football. Part of that is that I think that there are some things that maybe we're not seeing that Ty could do a better job of, and that's not just hanging on to the football. Like the sack that Wilkin Formby gave up, Ryan Grubb pointed out Ty could have gotten rid of that football. So we're all over here like, man, get Wilkin Formby out of there at guard. He's terrible, whatever. And the coach is over here saying the quarterback could have helped his guard out by getting rid of the football. These are things that, I pay attention to and definitely worth noting. We appreciate everybody for hopping on here with us. We're going to be talking about Alabama's defense against Missouri's offense on tomorrow's show. So we hope you guys tune in for that, and we will talk to you guys soon.